Hey everybody, it's Brandon from Fear the Cryptid. Today I'm going to show you how to put together your own Honeytone mini portal for ghost hunting. Now typically if you go online to one of the ghost stores and you're looking for this, you're going to pay around $350 to $400. Now I'm going to show you how to make it all for around $100 outside of the cost of your spirit box. Now you might already have a spirit box that you've been using, so as long as it has a headphone jack on it, you can use it for this build. So this one I have here is the PSB7 Pro. I like this one, so I'll be using that one today. So all of these items, we'll kind of go through an inventory here to show you what I have. You can get all of it pretty much at Amazon. The only thing I got at Lowe's was some washers, but that's more for making it a little bit cleaner. So we're going to start. So the first, I have my spirit box here. Outside of that, you're going to need the Honeytone amp. So this is just a mini guitar amp. That's your main speaker that you'll be hearing the sounds from. We have a couple guitar pedals over here on the side. Now the silver one is Azor the Noise, and the black one is Azor Reverb. Now these are the same pedals a lot of those stores have. So they're not real expensive, so you can go ahead and find those, or you could also use different brands. If you want to use something else, that's perfectly fine. Just look for one that's for the noise and one for reverb. Now over here we have some Velcro. So we're going to use hook and loop Velcro. It's sticky on both sides there. This is 1.5 inch. It's the right size to go on these guitar pedals and a little bit easier to use. Over here on the right side, this is once again just something kind of cosmetic that I put on this build because it helps clean up all the cables. But this is just a project box. So if you're looking on Amazon, project box or junction box, it's going to end up holding all of our cables inside here. I did drill some holes, you can see, and I'll kind of talk through those. I did that a little bit earlier. And then I also put on just a pull handle here, so you can get these there for drawers, cabinets, whatever. This is a 3-inch one. I just made it kind of clean, easy to pick up, and that way when you pick up this whole unit, nothing's really going to fall off of it. So it's always good to have a little bit extra of a handle there compared to the one that's on the Honeytone. This is just like a little leather strap, so you don't want to have that snap on you. Now outside of that, right here in the middle, I have a couple guitar cables or patch cables. This one is purple and this one's green. I just got those because it matches with my channel and my social media handles. But these are 15 centimeter cables, both instrument cables on each end. So we have 2 of those. In the middle here, this cable is an instrument cable on one side, and then the headphone jack, or the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, on the other end. So that's what will plug into your spirit box, where the bigger end will plug into your guitar pedal. So we'll get to that too. The washers I mentioned before, these are just to keep it a little bit clean, make it look a little better cosmetically, but we'll have the cables run through these on the holes that I drilled, so you're not just going to see some drilled holes. It's going to look a little bit nicer once we get these on there and the cables coming out of them. All right, the other thing that you will need, and it depends how you want to do this. At first I was going to run the whole unit off a rechargeable battery so I could just easily charge it up and go. But after kind of playing around with it a little bit with one of these, the feedback I got on the amp wasn't great. So it kind of blocked out anything you would get for voices because it was kind of doing a whining sound using a rechargeable battery. So these are typically the Honeytone, and each pedal run off a 9-volt battery each. So I ended up getting these battery packs, and I got 2 of them. So instead of running everything off of one, I'm going to run the pedals off of one of these and the amp off another, and that way they'll just last longer overall. So what these are is they're just battery boxes. There you go. Is equivalent to 6 AA batteries. So this is what it's going to be. We'll have 6 AA batteries in each of these units, and then these do have power switches, which are kind of nice. So once we have it all set up, we can leave everything on, but we can cut the power right at the batteries, which is going to be pretty handy. So I mentioned I have 2 of those. Each of those do have a male end that comes off for DC cables. We're going to go ahead and one of the most important pieces you'll need for this build are these reverse polarity cables. Now, guitar pedals run off of a negative inside and a positive outside, where most of the time your power cords are going to be the opposite. You'll have positive in the middle, negative on the outside. So you don't need to know all of what that means, but just note if you're running one of these battery packs and you have the mill end, you need a reverse polarity cable. We'll plug that in here, and then this end will plug into your pedal or into the Honeytone when we get there. If you don't have this and you plug it all together, it can heat up, you can blow out your pedal, you can blow up the amp, stuff could start smoking. So we don't want to get that far. So reverse polarity cables, super important to have. So we got 2 of those for this build. I have one for, like I said, the Honeytone and one for my guitar pedals. Over here, these ones are just, once again, more cosmetic. You don't need to have these, but I like it a little bit cleaner. So these are just extension cables with a right end on it. So this way, when I run it out of that box, this project box, into my devices, it's a little bit cleaner having the 90-degree end instead of a longer end with the cord coming out. So you don't have to have these, but I like them to clean them up. So I have a couple of those. And the last thing here is a daisy chain. Now this is one female end to a double male end. So you can see we have 2 here. So it splits into 2, and you can see one end here is just a single cord. This one here is a double cord. So that doesn't look as nice when it's coming out of the black project box. That's why I have one of these would be on that double cable, just to clean it up a little bit so it looks like a single cable. So those are the parts that we need for this build. I'll kind of take you through step by step here as we go through, but it's super easy build, and let's have at it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is kind of decide how we want to build this together. Now, you can put it together a lot of different ways, however you like it, and I'll kind of show you one method that I kind of liked when I was playing around with the different specs here to see what I could do. Now, online, if you're looking at the ones on the different stores, typically you'll see the Honeytone amp with a pedal Velcro to each side. So it is about the same width on each side. So you could put them like this if you wanted them to. I decided not to do it that way, and that's why I got this project box too. It'll also help with these pedals. But the reason why is I actually wanted to still have access to my ports on the side of the Honeytone. So this runs off a 9-volt battery. For our build today, we're not going to use that 9-volt battery or this spot because we're going to use these battery packs, and we're going to run it through the DC side of this amp. Now, you could use a 9-volt battery, but they are more expensive than buying AA's. So it's a little bit easier to replace AA's than constantly kind of getting on a 9-volt battery every time these run out. Now you could, if you still want to use battery packs, you can get a converter that would go from this 9-volt battery spot to one of these boxes. So it wouldn't have this male end like you see here. It would have an end that would match up with this 9-volt battery. So you could do that. But like I said, we're going to use it through the DC side, so I'm not going to bother with this area, and I'm just going to leave the cover right on there so we don't have to worry about that at all. Now there is this metal clip on the back. You could hang it on your belt or whatever you'd like, but for this build we're going to take it off so we have a little more space, because we're going to put this project box onto the back here. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew that and then continue the build. Alright, to save some time, I went ahead and unscrewed these 2 screws. They're just Phillips screws. It comes right out of the amp, and now you can see we have a couple holes there, but we needed that clip gone so we can put this project box on here. Now it's about the same width here as the Honeytone amp, so that's why we had to get rid of that. So on this project box, I did put 1 strip of the rough side here of my Velcro. So this is a 1.5 inch Velcro, and I ran it across the top of this box. And I did have a hole here. You don't have to do it for the build that we're doing today, but I did leave a hole there in the future, in case I ever did want to use that 9-volt battery spot, I would easily be able to run a cable in there, and that won't show when we have this together anyway. So I have that prepped here. So get your Velcro on here, and then we're going to want to match it up on this side. So we got the rough side here, we want the soft side here, and we'll go ahead and you'll just kind of line it up as best you can, and then get that Velcro right on that spot. So I'll go ahead and do that next and get that cut. All right, so to save some time, I got the soft side of my Velcro on the back of my Honeytone amp. So if I look at that project box now, you can see that I lined these up so they'll be flat, and then they kind of just will stick together like that. And that'll be the first piece of our build. Now, I mentioned I had certain holes drilled. We'll show you those in a little bit. But next will be our guitar pedals that we're putting on. Now, this box, since I need the holes drilled for some of the cables, I had to put some Velcro on this side and then on the lid. So when I put these together, that 1.5-inch Velcro will cover this area. So I did have to cut one of those Velcro strips in half, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And that way we could have one guitar pedal on each side of the project box, and we don't have to stick anything to the sides of the Honeytone amp. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just take that project box off for right now, just so it's a little bit easier to work with. And we're going to start with our guitar pedals. Now, on the Velcro side that's sticking to the Honeytone, we're going to have the black pedal on this side and the silver pedal on this side. So I am only going to kind of half put these on, because once again, this is 1.5 inch and this is only a piece of that 1.5. But what we're going to do is stick these on. So in order to do that, you would have to go ahead and cut this side of the Velcro as well. So I have the rough side on the pedal, and I have the soft side on the box. And that way, once I take it all apart, your box would be all soft sides if you had to disassemble it or anything like that. So we'll have the black on this side. We'll do the same. We'll cut that Velcro again. And this is why I got 1.5 inches, because it fits perfectly on the width of these pedals. So it just saves you some effort there. And we'll stick it on that side. So we don't want to cover up the holes, and I'll kind of show you where we're drilling those. So before we get too far with this build, if you're wondering about the project box, you're going to have a hole drilled on this side, a hole drilled on this side, and then on the top I have a hole on each side. Now, once again, I have one in the back. If you want to put it there for anything in the future, feel free, but mostly just one on each side, and then one on the left side here and one on the right side here. All right, so now that we have the pedals on our project box, we have our Honeytone amp, we can kind of start fake assembling it here. We might take it apart as needed, but ultimately, once we get the back on here and the battery packs, I'm going to put underneath. So then you'll have it all together in this little unit, and the handle works really well, so I recommend that. So next, we'll kind of look at where we want our battery packs. Now, I kind of played around with this a little bit too, and I'll move some of this stuff out of the way so we can have a little space. Is when I have my Honeytone amp, I'm going to want one of these battery packs kind of on half this side and one on half of this side. So we're kind of making a base for our amp. Now, when you're putting these under there, you'll have to look and find where is your power switch. So I have one here, and then, of course, one on the other side. So what I want to do is I want those power switches to be on the outside of the Honeytone amp, because I want it to be easier to access. So you can decide how you want to do it too. If you want it to be easier to get to the batteries or anything like that, feel free to change it how it works for you. But what I want to do here is I'm going to kind of put these together, and then we'll end up Velcroing these onto the Honeytone amp. So you'll kind of see here, we're making a nice little base for it. And if it overhangs a little bit in the back, that's perfectly fine, because that'll actually help support our pedals too. So I kind of want it just maybe underneath to support everything. So one thing then, once we get that, you just want to make sure you can get to your power switches. So that's why I have one kind of flipped upside down, one flipped the other way. So if I push in, it'll turn it off. If I pull out on each side, it'll power on. So just kind of double hand, just do it that way. So that's my next step. So in order to do that, I have to figure out where I want them underneath and then add Velcro to both my Honeytone amp and to my project box. Now I have a little bit here already that I put on the project box, but I'm going to add a strip here onto my Honeytone amp. Then in reverse here, you're going to have to add Velcro to the two boxes. And then ultimately, once they're all Velcroed up, you can go ahead and stick this on where you want it, and then that'll kind of be the main unit, and then we're just running the cables, which will be pretty easy. All right, so I got the Velcro cut and put on the different parts. Now on my Honeytone amp, I just have a full strip of the 1.5 inch running across. And then on the project box, I got about a half of a strip running across here. I don't have any on the bottom of the pedals, but you could add some if you wanted more structure there. On the battery boxes, I put 1.5 inch strips on the bottom, and then I had about the half strips on the top here. So the Velcro, the bigger piece towards the power cable side. Now you're going to kind of link these together here, and then you're going to take your whole Honeytone and pedals and try to pair them up as best you can where they go together. So you can kind of rearrange this as needed, take it off, put it back on, however you see fit to get this on here. But once it's all together, then you're going to be able to just use that handle and pick up this whole thing. And it's pretty good. The Velcro doesn't really come off. It's pretty strong if you put all these pieces together the way that we've been doing it. So we have that all together. So once again, we have our Honeytone amp, we have our guitar pedals, and we have our two battery packs. Now each of those battery packs has 6 AA batteries. 6 AA batteries is the equivalent of a 9-volt. So we're going to pretty much have 2 9-volt batteries here that we're running off for this whole device. Now we have our power ends here. Now I mentioned before, probably the most important step here is to use one of these reverse polarity cables, because if you don't, that's what can kind of fry out your speaker and your pedals. So we get this reverse polarity cable, we have our battery pack, we're just going to plug them in together, and then this one is set and ready to go. And then same on the other side, we have another one. Make sure you grab the other reverse polarity cable, and that one's ready to go. So make sure you're using the reverse polarity and not the extension cable if you bought those as well. So we're going to start kind of running these through the project box to make it a little bit cleaner, and then we're going to hook it up to our pedals. So on this side, you can see a little bit here. This is where that hole that we drilled is. So we're going to run the cable as tightly as we can, kind of through here and into that hole. Now, easy way to do it is unplug your cable for now, run it through. So make sure the hole you drill is big enough to have one of these larger ends go through it. But we can run that cable in pretty close here. And then you can see it'll come into our project box. And we're going to go ahead and put that reverse polarity cable back on. Now we can run it, like I said, to the amp, or we can run it to the pedals. But we'll first get this through here. And now on the other side, same thing from the battery pack here. We have our cable. I'm going to unplug the reverse polarity cable for the time being, run it through this side. So just like the other side, we have a hole next to the pedal. We can go ahead and kind of clean this up a little bit, make it a little bit tighter so it doesn't show as much. And then that comes out through our project box too. We'll go ahead and plug that reverse polarity cable back in. So now you can see we have those two cables coming through our box. All right, so we have our two ends. We're going to start with the end that's on the silver pedal side. This is going to go back out the same way it came in, but since we're going to put in this extension cable first, we wouldn't have it accidentally sliding back out unintentionally for the whole cord. So we are going to take this end and we're going to run it through the hole. So I'll kind of show you. Here is where we had it going into the hole initially. We're going to put this end in too. So we'll have both cords running side by side next to each other. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and just plug these two together. So now that's all in there. But when we look at this side now, we had the battery power pack running in from the bottom up here. And then we have this one on top. And we're going to just plug it right into our amp. All right, so next we're going to work on the other cord. So if I turn it back here, we have our other battery pack that runs to this end. Now we're going to go ahead and use our daisy chain. So if I look over here, we have our daisy chain. So this is one female end. It goes to the two male ends. It's kind of a long cord here, but we have the two male ends. Now one has the single cord, one has the double cord. So in order to clean it up, I'm going to end up putting an extension cable onto this double cord. But what we're going to do here is we will go ahead and take the battery pack and we'll plug it into this daisy chain. Now remember that reverse polarity cable's got to be in between, which we have here. So I'm going to take the single end, so the single cord end, and run it through this hole up on top. Now this one can be a little bit tricky, so if you need to make the hole a little bit bigger, go ahead. But once I get that through, you can see on this one we have the DC input here. I'll try to turn it so you can see it here. We're going to run this down and plug it into that one. So now this pedal would have power, and our amp right now would have power once we turn these on. But we still need to get it to have power in the silver pedal. So that's where our second end of our daisy chain comes in. So we have the second cord, but I'm going to use this other extension. Once again, I like the 90-degree ends to make it a little bit cleaner. And this makes it a lot easier too. I can just drop this right into the top hole and then plug this one into that extension. And then if I spin this around for you, you can see here we have our DC power. We can just plug that right in. So right now, everything is set up to have power from those battery packs. So these are ready to go. But we still have a few other cords we need to hook up. All right, so now we're going to get our patch cables. So I had those two 15 centimeter patch cables. I'm going to use the purple one on this side, and I'll use the green in the back. So the purple one here is going to run from your black pedal. We can plug that in here. And it's going to go right up top to the amp. So nice and short cable makes it a little bit cleaner. I got the little bit of color like I wanted for the purple. Now on the back side is where we're going to end up putting the green one. But right now we got a mess of our cables, right? So we want to get this cleaned up before we go ahead and put that on. So all these cables you can kind of adjust and just put it into your box. You don't want to crimp any cables or anything like that, but you do want to kind of get them all in there. So this box is pretty good sized to take all those cables here without making a huge mess. And then you can go ahead and put the back on. Now you might have to move your pedals a little bit because we did have the Velcro, and we do want those to Velcro together. Now on the top here we have the 4 screw holes. So we're going to go ahead and put those screws back in that you got with this box. And that'll keep it all closed up and your cables inside. Alright, so I went ahead and I got those screws in. They're all in there ready to go. So if I lift this up now, you can see like all of our cables are pretty well put away. And that's why I like this little black box, because you can just hide everything. So the only cables that you really have sticking out are the ones that are your power cord. You'll get the little bit that'll sneak into the pedals, and you'll get the little bit that will sneak into the amp. And you can even run some of these battery power ones down kind of underneath it and pull it through a little bit, or push it in, however you choose. So that is the main part for the cables, except we have this last one we got to put in. And this is from our black pedal to our silver pedal. This is our green patch cable. We just plug it from one to the other. Simple as that. Plug them in, good to go. So that is everything except our hookup to the spirit box. So we have this auxiliary cord for the guitar cables, and then we have our audio end for the spirit box. So here we have this one spot left on our pedal on the silver side. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. And then this end would plug into your spirit box. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. So that is the main build. The only thing that I have otherwise that is your own choice if you want to put together are these rubber beveled washers. So you can kind of see they're rounded a little bit at the top instead of being flat. Now you'll want to get washers that'll cover up the holes that you drilled. So you might have to get a certain size. So for me, I went to Lowe's for this part just because I wanted to, see with my own eyes what size they are so I know whether or not they'd cover up the holes in that box. You could probably order them online if you know what size you need, but for me, I just wanted to kind of eye it up. So right now I'll take the spirit box off just so it's not in the way. I'll spin this around, and these are the holes that we had drilled. Now, there's a couple different sizes of these too. So I got some medium to larger ones to cover up these holes, and then some smaller size ones for the two holes on the side. Now, you might have to, unplug stuff a little bit just to get these in there. But what I'm going to do next is cut these washers right down the side. So just one slice all the way through, and that way we can slide them around the cable and they'll cover the hole. You can even add a little bit of some type of glue, acrylic or crazy glue, whatever you want to use, and just kind of tack it on there. I wouldn't put them on super firm because if you ever need to take out your cables again, you'll want to be able to pop these off. So that's what I'll do next, and then I'll show you those. All right, so we cut all of our washers. You can see the split down the center here. So up on top here, I can just kind of get it around my cable and push it through, and then you can run it down. So at this point, if you can see here, it covers up the hole pretty good, but just to kind of keep it in place, you'd want to get a little bit of glue and tack that on there. I'll try to get it a little bit better so you can see it, but it'll look a little bit cleaner doing it that way. Same thing on this end, and then on the two sides. So I'll unplug this spirit box cord here first. So we're going to cover up these two here. So I'll do that and show you the result. All right, so I got those on to my device. I didn't glue them down because I'll do that afterwards. But here you can kind of see it'll look a little bit cleaner. You'll have these kind of covering up the hole, and then the cables come out of each hole nicely. Same with the sides. You'll kind of see that it'll go in a little bit cleaner there. So ultimately, that's really the build. So it wasn't that hard. The main thing is just knowing kind of what cables need to run where, and especially those reverse polarity cables. Those are very important so you don't wreck your devices. Now, the rest is really just how you want to set it up. If you want to do the battery packs, if you just want to run it off of 9 volts, you can do that too. You'd need a couple extra 9 volts to run to each pedal there. But overall, this was pretty easy to put together, and a lot of it was just kind of cosmetic things of what I liked. So I liked it kind of being a base with the battery packs. I liked having the colored cords, and I liked putting on the little, beveled washers just to kind of clean it up, look a little bit nicer. Because some of them, even that you look at on the online stores, they look a little rough. There's cords going everywhere and things like that, where this is pretty clean. And like I said, I like the extra handle. This is easy to take with you, set where you want it to, and so on. I guess before I plug the spirit box back in, I'll go ahead and power this up. Now, you can turn on your power to the Honeytone amp up here. So I like to turn it on right away, so that way when I flip these battery packs, I can see the items light up. So you're going to have your Honeytone light up here. It'll be red. That'll turn on. And then your pedals. So these ones actually light up in the clear buttons, so on each side. Now, sometimes you might have to power them up. These are the power switches for the pedals. So if they don't turn on, you just click that button and then they should light up. So I'm going to turn on this one. You can see the red light for the Honeytone lit up, and you can hear it make a little bit of noise, hopefully. So you can hear that the amp is working and has power. Now next, this side will be for the pedals. So I turn this one on. You can see this pedal lit up blue. This one isn't lit up, but if I go ahead and click the switch, you can see it lit up now, and it has power as well. So our unit is working. We have the pedals working, we have the amp working, we can hear the amp is making sound. So then we're going to go ahead and hook up our spirit box. All right, so I'll start with my spirit box here. I'm going to go ahead and just turn this on, and I'll up the volume a little bit here too. So I'll just go up to 20 so you can kind of hear it making some static. Now I'll just start sweeping it in reverse, just so you can kind of hear the noise. Maybe I'll put up the volume a little bit more too, so you can hear it's working. It's trying. So what I'm going to do next then is I will go ahead and hook up that spirit box again. So once again, this end goes into the silver pedal. You might hear it kind of echo as the pedal is plugged in. And then this one will go into our spirit box. You can hear once I plugged it in, it's going. But what you don't hear is the sweeping sound. And that's why a lot of people like these Honeytones, because they kind of filter that out and you can hear the voices. And now you'll have to fiddle with the settings. Everybody kind of likes it a little bit different for their spirit box, how it's sweeping, whether you're using the antenna or not. But these are your two pedals that you'll have to adjust. So these two switches on the pedals, if you turn them, I kind of like this one between the sweeping sound into when it goes to nothing. But you can kind of play with that as much as you want. There's kind of a sweet spot in there. And same with this one, you want it to just have enough reverb to start making a good sound. Is always going to be echoey, but you'll start hearing a little bit longer sound compared to when it's just completely off. All right, and I'll just turn it up a little bit louder here so you can kind of hear it. And you can hear sounds coming through. Now this does have the antenna on, so if you wanted the antenna off, you could flip that off too. But I just wanted this on to let you start hearing some noises coming through. The antenna off is actually on the spirit box, so not all spirit boxes have them, but you can turn that off if you want, and that kind of cuts out your radio stations. But overall, that is the build, so nothing too crazy. If you wanted to turn off now your Honeytone and the two pedals, you can just flip the two battery switches at the bottom and not mess with anything else. You just push them in, everything shuts down. You just have to turn off your spirit box on the side. But I hope you found this helpful, and it'll hopefully save you a couple $100. And if you enjoyed this, please check out my Patreon, or you can buy me a coffee. But please like and subscribe, because I got a lot more videos I'll be putting out. So thanks. Have a good one, everybody.